From Taiwan towards what's transpiring in Europe. We're now learning that at least 3 people have been killed and 5 injured in a deadly blast at the Avangard explosives plant in Sterlitmark in Bashkortostan. The regional governor, Vradi Kabirov, has stated that forensic experts are investigating the cause. He's denied Ukrainian drones were involved in the same. Emergency services, meanwhile, have completed search and rescue operations throughout the night. The Avangard plant makes industrial explosives and dismantles ammunitions as well. It's been controlled by Russia's Rostec since 2022. Now, investigators are working at the same time to determine exactly what caused this particular blast. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Ross Feingor. We're seeing a barrage of attacks continuing on the ground between Russia and Ukraine, even as Donald Trump has just concluded his meetings with Zelensky. This escalation has in fact been increasingly seen after the Alaska summit that took place between Trump and Putin earlier. Energy infrastructure in particular has been targeted by both sides. There's also a lot of talk about Trump and Putin meeting in Budapest. Do you think these talks will really yield anything? Would they help in diffusing the tensions, or would it result in a sort of repetition of what we've seen in the aftermath of what transpired in Alaska?
We simply don't know the answer to that question, but I think the important thing here is that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, continues this effort. He continues to put his own time and the resources of the United States government into trying to find a way to reach either a ceasefire or some kind of long-term peace arrangement. And we know what the parameters are, and frankly, President Trump reiterated that on Friday, U.S. time, which is basically to freeze the current front line where it is. Now, that's extremely difficult for Ukraine to accept because it would mean that part of their territory, approximately or nearly 20% of their country, is going to be occupied by Russia with really no conclusion, no termination of that occupation in sight or on offer at all. So we don't know what the outcome of any of these talks will be, but I think it's good that they're happening. You know, the other approach would be to say no talks and Ukraine, you just keep trying to fight, but that's not the policy of the Trump administration. So some people want to criticize the president, but his policy is very clear, which is he's going to try and bring the two sides together into some kind of ceasefire arrangement.
Indeed, and we've recently seen statements being put out by Zelensky. He's pointed to the landmark deal in the Middle East. He said that the same approach that helped curb conflict in the Middle East could be applied here as well. But considering the geopolitical ground realities, the fact that Russia is a nuclear armed power, it has one of the strongest militaries in the world, could a similar approach really be applicable here too?
Difficult. There are certainly some similarities. For example, international donors are going to spend a lot of money to rebuild Gaza, and it'll take international donors to rebuild parts of Ukraine. There's talk of some kind of stabilization force of soldiers or police officers from different countries going on the ground in Gaza. There's been talk about that in Ukraine as well. Russia has objected to that, but eventually Russia might give in depending on which countries are part of the force and what its actual mandate is. So those are similarities, but where there's a significant difference at the moment was Israel was willing to withdraw significantly from most of Gaza, although they insist on keeping, if the deal is implemented in full, which really we don't know for sure if it will be at the moment, but if it is, Israel has agreed to withdraw from most of Gaza other than a limited security zone that is within the borders of Gaza. It's not within the borders of Israel. So Israel still anticipates occupying part of Gaza going forward. But the big difference here is Russia at the moment they're not saying that they're willing to withdraw from the territory of Ukraine that they occupy. And President Trump is not insisting on that. He's basically saying that Ukraine should accept where the front line is, which would mean Ukraine accepting that part of its territory is occupied by Russia. So that is a significant difference from the two situations.
All right, so requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking further developments. We're now learning that at least 2 people have been killed in a Ukrainian drone attack on a Russia-controlled part of the Kherson region in southern Ukraine. The governor, Vladimir Saldo, has informed this via his Telegram channel. Both victims lived in a temporary accommodation center for evacuees, which was hit by the latest Ukrainian drone strike in Russian-controlled areas of Kherson. Russian authorities have previously also stated the 61 drones have been intercepted by their air defenses today. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Feingold. Even as these developments are taking place, reports are coming in that Trump has denied the sale of Tomahawks to Ukraine. Of course, these are yet to be verified by the US administration, but this is what the murmur is on the ground. We'd also recently seen a statement by Donald Trump to the media where rather publicly he's come out and stated that the United States cannot deplete its own stocks of the Tomahawks. This is in the aftermath of his phone call with Putin and also in the aftermath of some rather strong statements we're seeing from Kremlin. What sort of message is then Trump giving not just to Zelensky, but to Europe at large?
I think Trump is being consistent. I mean, going into the presidential campaign last year and after he won, he was always skeptical of providing more weapons to Ukraine. He thought that the best way to bring about an end to the war was through negotiations and not adding more weapons to the conflict. And he's been consistent, and that's been his position after he took office as well. Now, as his frustration with Putin grew over the course of this year, he was willing to agree with the Europeans that they could purchase U.S. weapons and give those weapons to Ukraine, but he certainly put a stop to U.S. Giving any weapons to Ukraine. So his statements yesterday about not giving Tomahawks or selling Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, it's really not a surprise. President Trump, he clearly still prefers to find a way to negotiate some kind of ceasefire. And, you know, he's coming off a high. He had his success in Gaza, as well as with the other conflicts that he's helped resolve, as he often reminds us. And he feels that he's on a high, and he's on a streak where he could resolve conflict. So clearly his instinct is not to add more weapons to the situation. It's to try and negotiate a settlement. And although Zelensky mostly said the right things when he was at the White House or spoke with reporters on Friday, clearly this is frustrating for Zelensky. Obviously, going into this meeting, Zelensky wanted President Trump to say, sure, I will let Europe buy those Tomahawks and give them to you. And President Trump has said no for now.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking our time, sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus away from Europe to Latin America. We're now learning that violent protests erupted in Colombia's capital city, Bogota, as demonstrators, including indigenous groups, clashed with police near the U.S. Embassy. The rally was against U.S. President Donald Trump's policies. It turned violent when protesters fired arrows and set off explosives, injuring 4 officers. Authorities reportedly used water cannons and trucks to disperse the crowd as well. The incident took place during broader demonstrations organized by the Congress of the Peoples, representing indigenous and peasant communities who had gathered in the capital. Now, following the incident, Bogota's Mayor Carlos Fernando Galán has condemned the attacks, describing them as criminal acts by masked individuals targeting police officers with incendiary devices and bows and arrows. Listen in.
Hoy un grupo de delincuentes, algunos de ellos encapuchados, de manera premeditada, planeada evidentemente, se organizaron para atacar a la policía en inmediaciones de la Embajada de Estados Unidos, con artefactos explosivos, incendiarios, con flechas, con arcos. Rechazamos estos hechos. Yo inmediatamente le pedí a la Policía Metropolitana que actuara y que por medio de la fuerza controlara la situación con tanquetas y con otras herramientas. Y lo haremos las veces que sea necesario. Rechazamos además el hecho de que 4 miembros de la policía resultaron heridos en estos hechos.
Meanwhile, the protesters have said that the rally was meant to denounce President Trump's political policies, U.S. intervention in Latin America, and threats in the Caribbean region. These protests started earlier this week on Monday across Bogota, but escalated into violence only yesterday. Additionally, the Colombian president, Gustavo Petro, has called for maximum caution around the U.S. embassy and has confirmed that police were injured by arrows. The protester group has agreed with President Petro's caution, but has also called on the government to establish an anti-imperialist front. Shifting focus away from what's happening in Colombia towards the Middle East. In a major development, Iran has now announced that it is no longer bound by restrictions on its nuclear program, as the landmark 2015 nuclear deal with world powers has officially expired. Tehran's foreign ministry has stated that all provisions limiting its nuclear activities have now ended, though it has reaffirmed a commitment to diplomacy. The announcement comes amid ongoing tensions with the International Atomic Energy Agency, which has repeatedly raised concerns over Iran's lack of transparency and cooperation. Inspectors have faced restricted access in recent months, especially in the aftermath of Israeli and American strikes. This has deepened international worries over the pace and the purpose of Iran's uranium enrichment. Iran maintains that its purpose is for peaceful means in order to generate energy. Meanwhile, Western powers such as the United States of America and the E3 powers in Europe have contested this. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Mohammad Khatibi, Middle Eastern Affairs expert, joining us from Tehran. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Fresh statement coming in from the Iranian Foreign Ministry, making it very clear that Iran has no obligation to adhere to the 2015 nuclear deal since the time period has lapsed already. In the meantime, we've seen discussions with E3 powers break down completely, the E3 powers invoking snapback sanctions as well, still coming out to claim that negotiations should take place. Iran, on the other hand, has made it very clear and has drawn a red line that the interference of foreign powers would not be entertained and that the nuclear program would not be stopped at any cost. Still, it's left the door open for the United States of America and a proposal there as well. I want to understand from you, what are Iran's main concerns at the moment?
So the point here is that Iran from day one is insisting on enriching uranium, and also the Iran's foreign ministry is now referring to the resolution 2231, which is expired right now, and it is saying that the E3 has no legal right to invoke the UN sanctions against Iran, and on it, China and Russia are on Iranian side, and they are backing that Iran has the right to go on with its enriching uranium. As we all remember, Iran was on the
Apologies for interjecting. We've lost your connection over there. Of course, you have reminded our viewers that Iran has adhered to this, and we'd also seen an agreement in Cairo earlier being inked even after the strikes taken place, outlining what exactly are the procedures for the IAEA to continue inspecting these sites. Iran did say that it would not be following this agreement later on when the snapback sanctions were placed once again. We did know that Russia and China sought a 6-month extension, trying to buy out some time, but that did not somehow work. Still, the door is open for negotiations to take place, Iran making it very clear that it will not address any concerns that it has with any of the E3 powers, whether it's Britain, France or Germany, but it will do so directly with the United States of America if the US furnishes a proposal. I believe Mr. Khatibi is back with us. Apologies, we had lost your connection there in between. Please go ahead with your point.
Yes, I was trying to say that Iran from day one is insisting that its nuclear program is peaceful and it wants to negotiate. Under the NPT, Iran has the right to enrich uranium. But there are some issues with the United States, and the United States first agreed to a deal that Iran has the right to enrich uranium, and during Trump's first term, he withdrew from the deal and it started to imposing the maximum pressure policy on Iran. So right now, Iran is saying that the 2231 resolution is over and Iran has the right to go on with no restrictions regarding that resolution. The Chinese and the Russians are backing Iran's side in this regard. However, the EU and the West is trying to pressure Iran on the negotiating table. We should not forget that Iran was on the negotiating table when it got attacked by Israel and then by the United States. So IAEA and the United States want to know what happened to 400 kilograms of enriched uranium, its whereabouts is unknown, and Iran has agreed to allow the IAEA inspectors into the country and negotiate further, but with the snapback sanctions, that couldn't happen because it agreed in the Egypt, as you said, and after that, the snapback sanctions took place. So the aim of the snapback sanctions is to radicalize Iranian people and to force Iranians to uprise against the government. But I don't think that will happen because this scenario have been tried once when Iran was under sanction during the first Trump administration, and the maximum pressure did not pressure Iran to the negotiating table. Iran has found more new ways to sell its oil to countries that are willing to buy Iranian oil in a discount, and this will continue, and the pressure will not help anyone to reach peace. So right now, Iran is insisting that it will not accept zero enrichment, and if the United States continues to persist on that, there will be no deal, as we have seen in recent months.
All right, with that, I would like to thank you, sir, for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World, sharing your perspective with our viewers. With that, we shift our focus to what's happening in South Korea. South Koreans have returned home from Cambodia after being detained over alleged online scam operations. 64 South Korean nationals have reportedly arrived at the Incheon airport, escorted by police, with some handcuffed and wearing masks and caps. Most are expected to face investigation upon return. Now, their repatriation comes following the alleged murder of a South Korean college student in Cambodia earlier in August. This case was linked to an employment scam. Meanwhile, South Korean authorities have issued a code black travel alert for parts of Cambodia and have also deployed a team to rescue nationals lured into scam compounds. Additionally, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has ordered an urgent removal of illegal online job ads, not only for Cambodia, but for other countries in Southeast Asia as well. Additionally, senior South Korean officials have confirmed Cambodia's cooperation and announced plans to investigate and prosecute returned nationals involved in scam operations. Take a look.
정부는 이번 방문을 통해서 캄보디아 정부의 그간의 단속 노력과 우리나라와의 긴밀한 협력 의지를 확인했습니다. 이를 바탕으로 정부는 캄보디아 내 우리 국민 대상 스캠 범죄 근절을 위해서 효과적인 시스템을 구축하고 이를 적극적으로 활용하도록 하겠습니다.
캄보디아 당국의 체포가 돼서 우리에게 통보가 되고 거기에 맞는 방식으로 우리 법적 절차에 따라서 송환을 해서 우리나라 법의 심판을 받도록 하고 아울러 그 체포된 사람들의 국내 조사를 통해서 보이스피싱 규모를 조직을 전모를 항상 밝히는 데 주력을 하도록 하겠습니다.
Alright viewers, with that it's a wrap